Buttercups. How's everybody doing this evening? Welcome to or welcome back to the channel. Tonight we will be delving into 4 unsolved mysteries. Here we go, folks. Case number 1. The Jameson family deaths. The Jameson family deaths occurred on or after October 8th of 2009 when the Jameson family of Eufaula, Oklahoma, including Bobby, his wife Sherilyn, and daughter Madison, mysteriously disappeared. The family was reportedly considering the purchase of a 40-acre plot of land near Red Oak, about 30 miles from Eufaula at the time that they vanished. Their suspected remains were found in November of 2013 and positively identified by the Oklahoma medical examiner on July 3rd of 2014. No cause of death was determined, and the circumstances surrounding their disappearance remain unknown. The initial investigation into the Jameson family's disappearance indicated that they had probably not vanished of their own accord. Their pickup truck was found abandoned in Latimer County, Oklahoma, a short distance south of Kinta, a few days after their disappearance. The Jamesons' bodies were not found at that time, but their malnourished dog, Maisie, was still inside of their vehicle. Also discovered were the family's ID cards, wallets, mobile phones, and GPS system, and about $32,000 in cash. The Jamesons were not known for carrying large amounts of cash with them. Footage from the family's home surveillance system, time-stamped the day that they left their house, showed the couple making several silent trips between their vehicle and home as they methodically packed to leave. In the footage, the couple's movements were described as trance-like. The photo also shows Sherilyn place a brown briefcase in the vehicle. Former Sheriff Beauchamp remarked that he believed the briefcase could be an important clue, but both the briefcase and Sherilyn's handgun have never been recovered. The skeletal remains of 2 adults and 1 child were discovered by 2 hunters in a remote area of Latimer County in November of 2013, more than 4 years after the family went missing, and less than 3 miles away from where the pickup truck had been abandoned. Sorry guys, I got an itchy nose. The remains were widely presumed to be those of the missing family, though the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's Office had to use forensic pathology testing to identify them. Officials confirmed on July 3rd of 2014 that the remains belonged to the Jameson family. A cause of death was not determined due to the heavily decomposed state of the bodies. Did they not search for this family? I mean, a 3-mile radius from the vehicle is not that far. You would think that they would have had search parties kind of covering the area, but apparently not. Before the remains were discovered, several theories emerged about the family's disappearance, such as they had faked their own deaths, were in witness protection, were murdered, or had died by group suicide. Shortly before the disappearance, Bobby Jameson was involved in a bitter lawsuit with his father, Bob Dean Jameson, claiming he had threatened the family and had struck him with his vehicle in November of 2008. Bobby also alleged that his father was involved in methamphetamine Jamiesons themselves were drug dealers. Investigators cited the large amount of cash found in their truck and the apparent strange behavior exhibited by Bobby and Sherilyn shortly before they went missing. The Jamiesons had reportedly told their local pastor, Gary Brandon, on separate occasions that they had seen spirits inside their home and that Bobby had allegedly claimed to have been reading the Satanic Bible. What do you guys think about this one? They never determined the cause of death. They never determined if they were murdered, if they went out there and killed themselves, why there was still all that cash in the truck, why they brought their dog and left their dog trapped inside the truck. Very, very odd and still unsolved to this day. Really creepy, that one. Our second case is that of the mysterious death of the 8-day bride. On the evening of May 20th, 1947, the body of 22-year-old Christina Kettlewell was found 150 feet from her honeymoon cottage in just 9 inches of standing water on the banks of a river in Severn Falls, Ontario. Christina lived in Mimico, Ontario, and worked at a bank where she was described as a capable employee. On May 12, 1947, Christina eloped with John Ray Kettlewell, a 26-year-old war veteran better known as Jack, after knowing each other for 3 years. Christina's family had a concern about the marriage. Ronald Berry, a 28-year-old immigrant from Italy, was Jack's best friend and a professional ballroom dancer. It's said that Jack, Christina, and Ronald spent an inordinate amount of time together. Christina's sister Helen would comment that the family thought that perhaps Ronald was in love with Christina. Following the elopement, the Kettlewells spent the next few days at an apartment in Toronto. Bizarrely, Ronald joined them for the entirety of their honeymoon. And on May 17th, the trio headed out to Ronald's remote cottage in Severn Falls, only accessible by boat. During their time at the cottage, it's reported that Christina began to act out of character. She would go into crying fits, while at other times seemed completely dazed. Evidence suggests that Christina had conversations with Ronald about whether or not Jack truly loved her. On May 20th, Christina disappeared from the cottage. Curiously, on the same day that Ronald's cottage mysteriously caught fire. Yeah, sure, I'm sure that was a coincidence. Ronald returned to the cabin to find a disoriented Jack sitting in the cabin with an apparent head injury and pulled him out of the blaze. He looked for Christina but couldn't find her anywhere in the cottage. Ronald recalled that the cottage burned to the ground in just an hour. He took Jack on a boat to Severn Falls to reach a car to drive him to the hospital and contacted the police. It was then that Ronald discovered that the situation became even worse. That evening, Christina's body was found in 9 inches of water, just 150 feet away from the cottage, by Neville Sweet, an owner of a boathouse in the area. Her body was free from burns or any signs of violence. An official autopsy found traces of codeine in her stomach, but her ultimate cause of death was declared a drowning. Interesting, Major Lawrence Scarfield, who tried to help put out the fire in the cottage, said he saw no signs of Christina's body in the area when he went to fetch water from the river to help with the flames just hours earlier. June 19th, an inquest into Christina's death began, which became quite the spectacle. The public packed not only the courtroom, but the grounds outside, with some even approaching Jack and Ronald, the main witnesses, for autographs. It should be noted that Jack and Ronald were not on trial for murder. This was simply a case to determine whether or not foul play had been involved in Christina's death. While the highly sensationalized investigation uncovered many interesting bits of information, the jury of the inquest ultimately could not agree on whether Christina's death was the result of foul play or not, stating, due to the fact that the post-mortem examination disclosed codeine in the stomach of the deceased, and due to the suspicious fact that she was found drowned, this jury is unable to decide on the evidence given whether or not foul means were employed in her death. Jack and Ronald were in the clear, as there was no evidence implicating either of them in her death, but their relationships to both Christina and each other were thoroughly exposed in the process. The police report claims that there were signs and evidence that Christina was very distressed by the unnatural conduct of her husband and Barry. Theories. Christina may have been dealing with mental illness and killed herself. The largest pieces of evidence that Christina may have killed herself are the several suicide notes written prior to her untimely end that were uncovered during the inquest. The first note, written on Easter Sunday before their engagement and about 5 weeks before the wedding, was addressed to Ronald. In it, she writes that she tried to poison herself and talks about the uncertainty of receiving a proposal from Jack. In it, she claims, "This will be the best way out, as I cannot bear to see another girl have him." Jack recalls Christina being sick that day, but claimed in his testimony that she was unaware, or that he was unaware, of the suicide note. She wrote another suicide note at the end of April. This time her intention, as detailed in the note, was not only to kill herself, but Jack as well. In this note, also addressed to Ronald, she wrote, "When you love someone, you really love him, and I know there is no one for me but Jack, and if I cannot have him, I do not intend anyone else to. I waited, as you might say, in the hope that Jack would ask me to marry him, but now I realize I am just a passing fancy." The last note was written the day before she died. It was addressed to a Mrs. Thomas, who owned a home in Mimico that Christina and Jack stayed in for a little bit. Once done, Christina asked Ronald to mail the letter for her. She writes, "Ronnie is in the boat outside somewhere. By the time he gets back, everything will be all over with. He must have been afraid something would happen because he is staying an extra day to make sure we go back to Toronto with him." All notes were confirmed by a handwriting expert to have been signed by Christina. Ronald held on to all the notes from Christina, but he never told Jack about them until the inquest. Strangely, Ronald was able to choose and to save the letters from the burning cottage. Sorry, guys. Perhaps Jack and Ronald were not so innocent. The first bit of evidence that suggests the duo may have planned this is a series of insurance policies purchased before Christina's death. Jack took out 2 separate life insurance policies on himself and Christina before the marriage. Each $5,000 Canadian policy contained a double clause which would allow the beneficiary his will for reasons unknown. Also, Christina's wedding ring became a suspicious detail in the inquest, as it was never recovered. Reports defer to whether Ronald purchased the ring for Christina or if Jack borrowed the ring from a married friend, and the true price of the ring is also debated, ranging from $1,000 to $13,000. Nevertheless, it was never found after Christina's death. Jack's statement to the police after the fire was another fascinating exhibit entered into the inquest. The statement Jack states that he and Ronald had, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, guys. Let me restart that sentence. Jack states that he and Ronald had been in an intimate relationship for some time. However, in court, Jack claimed he was coerced to make the statement, as the police wanted to build that story in their report. The police commissioner did in fact touch on this relationship in the report of Christina's case. In it, he writes that the relationship between Jack and Ronald was, to put it mildly, to be unnatural. Man, times have changed since the 40s. There was no evidence to prove this relationship, but it was highly suspected. In the inquest, Crown Counsel C.B. Hope didn't believe Jack was coerced and suggested that the two were actually lovers. Jack finally agreed to this after Hope hammered him with questions. The Toronto Star describes the questioning in an article from June 20th, when Kettlewell, after vigorous questioning, agreed with Mr. Hope's repeated suggestion that he and Ronald were male lovers. The fantastic triangle of twisted and thwarted emotions took shape. What do you guys think? Do you think that Ronald and Jack were like in love with each other and it was a scheme the whole time for the insurance money? They clearly knew that Christina had some emotional issues and had clearly mentioned, ending her life multiple times. Really convenient that the cottage burned down so they could get the insurance money for that, and then she accidentally drowned in 9 inches of water. Come on now. Anyway, on to the next case. This is the case of the Circleville writer. In 1976, several Circleville, Ohio residents began receiving strange letters detailing personal information about their lives. Bus driver Mary Gillespie was accused of supposedly non-existent affair with the superintendent of schools. The writer told Mary that she had been observing her house and knew she had children. It was postmarked in Columbus, Ohio, but had no return address. Within 8 days, Mary received a similar letter. She kept the letters to herself until her husband Ron received one as well. The letter stated that if Ron did not stop his wife's affair, his life would be in danger. After 2 weeks, the writer threatened to go public with the affair allegations. Excuse me, folks. Broadcasting it on TVs, CB radios, and billboards. Mary and Ron only told 3 people about the letters: Ron's sister, her husband Paul, and Paul's sister. Mary had some ideas about who might be sending the letters. They decided to have Paul write letters to the suspect, claiming that they know who she was. The plan seemed to work. The letters stopped for several weeks. That changed on August 19th of 1977, however, when Ron received a phone call from the alleged writer. The call seemed to confirm Ron's suspicions on the identity of the writer. He grabbed his gun and then left in his pickup truck, even though the writer claimed to be watching the truck. A few Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe questioned and eliminated at least one suspect in the case. He then ruled Ron's death an accident, claiming that he had lost control and crashed while driving the truck. However, several residents soon received letters stating that Sheriff Radcliffe had been involved in a cover-up. According to Paul, Sheriff Radcliffe initially agreed that the death was the result of foul play. However, he allegedly changed his mind when the suspect passed a polygraph test. Ron's blood alcohol level was .16, which was twice the legal limit. However, many of Ron's friends and family were surprised by this. They did not think that he was a heavy drinker. Mary and the superintendent later acknowledged a relationship, although they claim that it did not start until after the letters were sent. In February of 1983, Mary was harassed along her bus route. The letter apparently began placing threatening signs next to the road. One day, Mary had enough and decided to go and rip the sign down. When she did, she discovered a booby trap designed to kill her. The trap had a box which contained a small pistol. If Mary had pulled the sign off a certain way, the gun would have fired. An amateur attempt was made to rub off the serial number on the gun. When lab tests were able to raise the number, it was determined that the gun had belonged to Paul, who had recently separated from Ron's sister. Paul, however, claimed that the gun had been stolen. On February 25th, 1983, Sheriff Radcliffe asked Paul to meet with him and take a handwriting test. He asked Paul to try and copy the handwriting from the letters. Sheriff Radcliffe also had him write the letters while repeating them verbally. After the test, Paul took Sheriff Radcliffe to his garage and showed him where he kept his gun. Afterwards, the two returned to the courthouse, where Paul was arrested and charged with attempted murder. On October 24th of 1983, he went on trial for the attempted murder of Mary Gillespie. Although he was never charged with writing the threatening letters, they became a crucial part of the evidence against him. A handwriting expert testified that Paul was the letter writer. Mary also testified that she believed that he was the writer after his wife visited her with the same suspicion. Paul's boss also testified that he was not at work on the day that the booby trap was found. Paul had an alibi for most of the day, however. He never took the stand in his defense. Proclaiming his innocence, he was convicted and was given a 7 to 24-year sentence. While there, he himself received letters from the writer, determined to keep him there. Others still received the letters the same spot where the trap would later be found. Yant found that the possible suspect's brother owned the same type of car. The description does not match Paul, and he had a solid alibi at this specific time. Wanted, however, the Circleville writer. I'm really tripping over my words today, guys. My sincerest apologies. That dyslexia is in full fucking force today. Wanted, however, the Circleville writer did write a postcard to Unsolved Mysteries, one of my favorite shows, after the broadcast. Their identity remains unrevealed. Since this case has been broadcast, however, Paul, who maintained a blog for several years, passed away in 2012, never knowing the identity of the Circleville writer. However, recent information uncovered by Martin Yant and others has suggested that there were at least 3 letter writers involved in the case, none of whom were Paul. One was believed to be the son of the superintendent, whom Mary had had the affair with. The second was believed to be a co-worker who was infatuated with Mary. The third was believed to be Paul's ex-wife, Ron's sister. It is believed that the ex-wife's boyfriend was the man seen next to the El Camino on the day that the booby trap was discovered. One of her relatives had owned that type of car at that time. Despite the evidence, the police still maintain that Paul was the Circleville writer. How can he be the writer if those letters were still coming while he was in fucking prison? I don't know, guys. What do you think about this one? Mary was really popular, man. She had a bunch of people out to get her ass. Alright. And our last case is that of the murder of Patrice Andres. Here we go. 38-year-old hairdresser Patrice Andres disappeared from her hair salon in Cumming, Georgia on April 15th of 2004. Between 11:37 and 11:50 a.m. Her remains were found on December 6th of 2005 in Dawson County, Georgia. There are several suspects in her death, including her husband Rob, and 2 serial killers, Jeremy Jones and Gary Hilton. Despite this, the case remains unsolved. Patrice had a son, Delves Wade, Pistol Black, from a previous relationship. He was in 10th grade when she vanished. Every morning, she would wake him up by turning on the treadmill and running. This is what she did on April 15th of 2004. The two argued briefly that morning because he was in a hurry to get to school. He wanted to get there early so that he could talk to his girlfriend before class. That morning, Patrice dropped him off at school. She told him that she loved him and would see him in the afternoon. He told her that he loved her too, and that was the last time he ever spoke to his mother. Later that day, Pistol was in biology class when a school resource officer came in and took him to the office. He asked if he had spoken with his mother, to which he replied that he had not. He then asked if there was any way he could get in touch with her. He called her on his cell phone, but she did not answer. Normally, if she did not answer, she would immediately call back. However, he called 3 times and got no answer. He knew then that something was not right. Patrice was extremely involved in Pistol's life. She went to every meet and game of his. She always wanted him to be happy. He recalled that from a young age, his mother had a passion to cut hair and make people look beautiful. When he was a teenager, she would always want him to put his hair in different styles always positive and smiling. She always tried to make others feel special, and according to Nancy, her salon was her dream and she was very proud of it. Her husband Rob was the one that helped her start it. Rob and Patrice met when he was 50 and she was 30. At the time, she was renting a chair at a 2-station beauty salon. The two first met when he stopped there to get a haircut. They fell in love and later married in 1997. They were together for 7 years, which he considered the happiest time of his life. He recalled that the community and her customers loved her. Often she would cut a customer's hair and they would stay for hours just to chat with her. Patrice's sister, Kylene Kramer, recalled that she loved everyone and would always give people big hugs when she greeted them. Anne MacDonald met Patrice several years before she vanished as a walk-in at her salon. The two hit it off and became close friends over the years. Since the salon was close to Anne's house, she and Patrice would hang out there often. She always went by there every afternoon to visit her. She remembered when she visited her the night before her disappearance. Patrice said, "Woman, are you going to be back here tomorrow?" And Anne responded that of course she would be there. Normally, Anne would call Patrice on her cell phone. On the day of her disappearance, her calls went straight to voicemail, which was odd to her. By the time she arrived at the salon, there were police cars surrounding it. Police had received a 911 call from a customer who had arrived at the salon and found it empty. When the officers arrived there, they found the cash register open and money missing from it. Her purse and car keys were laying on the counter. It appeared that she was about to warm up her lunch as it was found on the counter next to the microwave. The rest of the stop was undisturbed. There was no blood, overturned furniture, or drag marks at the scene. When police officers took Pistol to the salon, he learned from detectives that Patrice was missing. He could not believe it and was convinced that she would return soon. Rob was contacted at work around 2 p.m. and told that she was missing. He was hoping that she was okay. Girlfriend was not fucking okay. When he arrived at the salon, detectives told him that they planned to interview him. He realized that he was being considered a possible suspect, which he understood since it was his wife that was missing. Investigators noted that they initially were unsure whether or not Patrice was a victim of kidnapping. There was nothing in or around the salon that indicated a crime had occurred. The only thing that was out of place was her black Chevy Tahoe, which was parked in front of the salon, facing in a westward direction. This was strange because according to her customers and loved ones, she always backed into the spot on the side of the building so that she was closest to the side door. It is not known if she or someone else moved the vehicle. One theory was that an assailant convinced her to move her car under the guise of getting theirs jump-started. They then used the opportunity to abduct her. Oh, holy shit, I'm so sorry, guys. That sounded like a fucking alien sound coming out of my chest. Holy moly. Okay, anyway, back to it. Alright, when Kylene arrived at the salon, police had begun a massive search of the area. She and her family were understandably concerned. A thorough search was conducted. However, no trace of Patrice was found. It was hoped that she was alive and had just left voluntarily. However, her family and friends did not believe that she would leave Pistol behind because she loved and cared for him too much. That's if something happened. He did not think anything of it at the time. Early on, investigators built a timeline to determine what happened on the morning of Patrice's disappearance. She had customers in her salon the entire morning. Based on her appointment book, they were able to holy shit. You know what, you guys, thank you so much for staying tuned while I struggle through this last story like it's my job. The first client, Pam Shepard, arrived at 8:50 a.m. for her 9 a.m. appointment. She recalled that Patrice seemed distracted and was not very attentive to her. At 11:05, Pam left the salon. At 11:10, Paul Cantor arrived for his haircut. He left at 11:27 a.m. As he was leaving the salon, he got a phone call, which was verified by cell phone records. At 11:35 a.m., a customer called to change an appointment. She recalled that Patrice was somewhat short on the phone, which was unusual for her. The call lasted about 2 minutes. Based on phone records, the next call came in at 11:50. She did not answer this call. Investigators believe that something happened to her within the 13 minutes between 11:37 and 11:50. Outside of Patrice's salon at around 11:45 a.m., two independent witnesses saw another car in the front of it. As witness Tammy Fincher came over the hill, she first noticed Patrice's car. Then she noticed a Chevy Lumina, which was pulled directly into the salon. It had a Georgia Quail wildlife tag. The front door to the salon was open. She saw two women around the vehicle, a taller, dark-haired lady, presumably Patrice, near the salon's front door, and an older lady on the passenger side. They had hands on each other. She was not sure if one had tripped and fallen or was pushing the other over, but she was sure it did not look normal. The second witness was driving by the salon at approximately the same time. However, he believed the second vehicle was a Ford Taurus, possibly a Malibu. He also reported seeing a man with shoulder-length hair standing next to the car. Both witnesses are considered credible because they described essentially the same thing and were totally independent of each other. Tammy believes she was the last person to see Patrice alive. She feels guilty because she did not do anything about it at the time. Although people tried to reassure Pistol that Patrice would come home safe, he knew that she would never leave him. He spent hours in the woods, calling her name and hoping that he would find her. It was the first time he had been without her. Although he was just 15 at the time, he said that the situation made him grow up extremely fast. He also said that he went through some hard times after she vanished. Pistol recalled having a troubled relationship with Rob. He was around 8 when they married. Nancy recalled that Patrice was very happy when she got married, believing that Rob was the guy she was supposed to be with. Pistol said that Rob was nice to him during the first year and that he tried to be involved in his life. However, he later turned into a different person and acted very different towards Pistol. He tried to make Pistol feel like he was not good enough. He would walk past his room and say crude things to him. Nancy recalled that Rob was overly protective of Patrice, always hovering whenever he was around her. He was jealous of Patrice's relationships with her friends. Kylene recalled that Patrice was not happy and that she and Rob fought often. He apparently wanted her all to himself. He also did not understand why Patrice gave Pistol so much attention. Duh, you was not getting attention because Pistol was getting all the attention from his mother. Pistol witnessed Patrice and Rob fighting on several occasions, and the fight was about Pistol. Patrice would never back down. Rob, however, denied that he and Patrice ever argued. He claimed that Pistol was jealous of the closeness of his and Patrice's relationship. He also claimed that she never disciplined Pistol and that he would run crazy. He claimed that he did not see any future in Pistol when he was with him. Pistol claimed that Patrice had spoken about divorcing Rob a few weeks prior to her disappearance. She allegedly had been unhappy about the relationship for several years. Rob claimed that she had never mentioned divorce to him. He admitted that there were issues sometimes, but he chooses not to remember them. He claimed that he was looking forward to spending their whole lives together. The day after Patrice went missing, Rob changed all of the locks on the doors to the house. He would not let Pistol in to get his clothes or any other possessions. Pistol knocked on the doors and windows, but Rob would not answer. Rob claimed that he did this as a precautionary measure. He said that he did not want Pistol in the house because he did not like him. He wanted him to stay somewhere else so that he knew he would be safe. He also did not want to have to put up with his shit. After Patrice vanished, Pistol went to live on his father, Don Black's farm. It was a difficult time because Don was also depressed about Patrice's disappearance. Despite their relationship ending, the two had remained close friends over the years and spoke every day. As the days passed, Pistol became more and more anxious. He hoped that Patrice would turn up one day, claiming that she left in order to set up a place for them to get away from Rob. Every morning, he woke up hoping that it would be the day his mother came home. Sadly, that day never came. Patrice's father, Richard Damber Sr., had similar hopes that she would show up at his house one day. Anne also had hopes that she would receive a phone call or letter from her one day. Others, like Nancy, began to realize as time passed that she was probably not going to be found alive. Meanwhile, investigators tried to interview everyone that knew Patrice. They reviewed financial records, phone records, and other information to try and figure out what happened. They also looked into several possible suspects. One was serial killer Gary Michael Hilton. He abducted Meredith Emerson and her dog while they were on a walk. He took them to neighboring Dawson County, where he kept her alive for several days before brutally murdering her. Hilton was known to have been in Forsyth County, where the salon was located, as he had been stopped for a traffic violation there. He was known to call people over the phone and con them out of money. However, he also did that in person as well. In one statement to investigators, he told them that his favorite place to go was a hair salon. He would go in and ask for money, usually around lunchtime. He was known to hunt for people and would kidnap a person if the opportunity arose. Investigators could not find an alibi for him on the day of Patrice's disappearance. Although they do not have any evidence to prove his involvement, he remains a potential suspect. Another possible suspect in the case is Jeremy Jones. In January of 2005, he was arrested in Mobile, Alabama, for the murder of a woman there. Investigators noted that he was easy to talk to, but also seemed to have a demon inside him and liked to sexually abuse and kill women. He confessed to the murders of at least 6 women. He then told investigators Baptist church, 6 miles from the salon, when they took a snack break on the back steps. Albert. And there's my cat crying at the door. Jesus Christ. Sorry, guys. Albert noticed some buzzards were flying around in the nearby woods. He had a friend. The ASMR you guys didn't know you needed. Let's try this one more time. Albert noticed some buzzards were flying around in the nearby woods. He and a friend decided to go over and see what they were interested in. After finding a dead deer, his friend noticed a white object nearby. They then realized that it was a human skull. Albert and his friend contacted the police. The Dawson County Sheriff's Office contacted investigators incoming and told them of the discovery. The area was extensively searched and more remains were found. They were confirmed to be Patrice's. Pistol was at school that day when he was called to the principal's office. Don came in and told him that her remains had been found. The area where Patrice's remains were found was a very rural and remote area. According to investigators, it would have been difficult to carry dead weight over the terrain. However, they noted it was possible that she was walked into the area. It is also possible that her body was dragged there. Pistol told police that he believed Rob had something to do with his mother's murder. He believed that her trying to get a divorce from Rob played a major part in it. He believed that Rob would have been very jealous if she had left for someone else. Nancy also told the police that they should look into Rob. She knew that Patrice had not been happy with him, and she always thought he had something to do with it. Rob denies any involvement in Patrice's murder and claims that it was physically impossible, time-wise, for him to have been involved in it. On the day of her disappearance, he was at home. Before he went to work, he got gas for his car. He had a time-stamped receipt to prove this. According to him, her salon was about 45 minutes from Woodstock, where he was getting gas. He also claimed that there was a turnstile at work that recorded what time he came in. Furthermore, he claimed that there was no motive for him to kill Patrice because she did not have any life insurance on herself. According to the investigators, Rob was thoroughly investigated. They created a timeline of his day. They noted that while this timeline does not eliminate him from being involved, it greatly reduces the chances that he could have done it. They also could not eliminate a murder for hire scenario. However, they did not feel that this was probable. They uncovered nothing that suggested that he murdered Patrice. Rob believes that someone who knew Patrice's routine was involved. Based on the lack of struggle at the scene, he believes that it was someone she knew. He also suspects that more than one person may have been involved. Furthermore, he speculates that someone may have kept her captive for several days, using her as a toy before killing and dumping her. He also speculates that the killer used a wheelbarrow to place her in and take her to the site where she was found. Investigators are certain that whatever happened to Patrice occurred seen outside of the salon as critical to solving the case because the sighting occurred in the 13-minute time window. They hoped to find someone who owned that type of car at the time and was acting very strangely on the day of Patrice's disappearance. Patrice's wedding ring was also missing. It had a 1.5-carat pear-shaped diamond with 2 other 14-carat gold rings attached. There are some aspects of the investigation that investigators refuse to discuss because they define it as guilty knowledge information. This is information only known to the killer and the police. This information helps to substantiate or disprove a confession. When Patrice's remains were brought to the funeral home, Rob asked the staff to reassemble her and lay her out for him to see. They did just that, placing the remains in the correct anatomical position. When that was finished, the director brought Rob into the room with her remains. Rob proceeded to pick up her skull and carry it around for several minutes before putting it back and kissing it goodbye. Patrice was later cremated. When her ashes were given to Rob, he kept them in his bed with him for over a year. He described them as his teddy bear because when she was alive, he would do the same thing with her, snuggle together in bed. He said that it brought back good memories for him. He also said that he has her, and that's a good thing. He now keeps her ashes in a box in the bottom of a closet. He has never shared the ashes with anyone, not even Patrice's son. Pistol confirms that he has never received any of Patrice's ashes. He also did not get any of her pictures or other belongings. Despite all these years passing,